Michael, what on earth are you doing?
I'm trying to stay calm, Aaron.
What do you need to stay calm for?
Well, I mean, on the surface, everything looks good. Labour are 8 points ahead in the polls. We've got a transformative programme that's really popular with the public. We're bigger than ever, more vibrant, democratic, dynamic. But there's some people, there's some centrist cranks, and they're throwing their toys out of the pram.
How many times do I have to explain to you, Michael? Ignore these people.
Aaron,
they don't matter.
Aaron, they're trying to make it seem like there's a civil war in the party. It's all because of what's going on in Haringey.
Right.
So there's a council of a Labour council, and they wanted to privatise quite a lot of land, and there were lots of residents who were upset about it, lots of small business owners.
Gentrification.
Gentrification, exactly, Aaron. And what happened was there were councillor elections the last couple of weeks, and lots of the Labour members, they thought this is an unpopular policy, we don't agree with this policy. And the only way they thought to change the policy was to get some new councillors in.
Right,
So
democracy.
Democracy. I think it's something that should be celebrated. It's an example of a big, massive Labour Party bringing policy more in line with the community they're supposed to serve.
So what's the problem?
Well, lots of people aren't happy about this, and they're saying bad things about it, Aaron.
Who?
I mean, Caroline Flint, she's called it a purge.
Oh, Jesus, Caroline Flint.
I mean, this isn't a purge. This is
Oh my God.
democratically members choosing new candidates. The people don't have to leave the party.
Michael, you don't need to take up meditation. You don't need to, I don't know, go for long walks. You don't need to swim in glacier water. You need to relax.
But Aaron,
you need to log off, and you need to ignore these people.
It's not just Caroline Flint. Heidi Alexander,
Oh
she's
my
also
God.
tweeting about it.
Jesus Christ. Who cares?
I mean, Claire Cover, she's the leader of the council, so she was the person who thought of this Haringey development vehicle, who was as the spearhead of this privatisation programme. She's doing some red baiting, so she's saying that one of the leaders of the campaign was writing for the socialist workers. She couldn't provide any evidence, and the guy denies it.
Right.
Luke Akehurst, the venerable Luke Akehurst, he wants to suspend democracy altogether. He thinks the NEC should come in, suspend democratic elections and impose the existing councillors.
I think you need to kind of just chill out a bit, Michael. These people, the usual suspects, they're saying the same usual shit. Who in the mainstream media is going to give them the time of day?
I mean, that's when I first saw it, I was like, surely this will get ignored. This is just sour grapes. But no, Aaron. Did you see the Times? The front of the Times last week?
Well, look, the Times used...
Moderates forced out by hard left in Labour purge.
Look, the Times used to be a paper record, but, you know, it's a centre-right rag now. Nobody, I can guarantee you, nobody, even on the centre-left, would touch this bollocks.
Aaron, I was hoping that as well. But, you know, the Sunday paper of record for the left, the one that always tells us what the liberal left, what Labour values should be. What am I talking about, Aaron?
You're talking about the Sunday Mirror?
No, the Observer, Aaron. The Observer. I looked at the Observer this Sunday, as I did with my cup of tea.
The Observer still
exists. It was on the front page. Labour in its biggest crisis ever.
I think that must be a paper from a few years ago. Nobody reads the Observer anymore. I don't even think it's in print.
Well, I think they've got a new commentator, and I think he's really going to improve the paper.
A young buck.
It was Roy Hattersley. He said this is Labour's greatest crisis, and it's time to fight back.
That name sounds familiar.
Roy Hattersley, you might have forgotten who he was.
Right, yeah.
But for 9 years, he was the deputy of the Labour Party.
Oh, when was that?
Well, it was a very successful 9 years. It was 1983 to 1992. We were out of government the whole time, but it didn't really matter because we did stick to our values.
Well, look, no. This guy, Hattersley, is triggering something. What did they get in the 1987 general election?
Well, in the 1980s, they got a respectable 30.4%.
Okay, well, that's 10% worse than all Labour just got. What did they get in...
It went up, 1992. It went up to 34%.
Okay, so basically it was a complete waste of time. Jeremy Corbyn's up 19 points in the polls since April alone.
Well, I mean, they went up a respectable 7 points in a fairly long 9 years.
Right.
He also lost the leadership election to Neil Kinnock, probably one of the only people to lose to Neil Kinnock ever. Apart from Tony Benn, but that's a different issue.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that one.
We don't talk about that. That didn't count.
It didn't count, did it? Anyway, the things that Roy Hattersley is saying, he's saying that Momentum is the new militant. It's a small group of ideological people who are committed to overthrowing the majority of Labour members and making the party something completely unpopular with the public, something extreme. He calls them extremists, in fact.
You sure he wasn't talking about the Parliamentary Labour Party?
Well, that's what you might think, because they're the ones who are out of step with the majority of the Labour Party, and particularly who are out of step with the Labour Party.
An ideological minority, you might call them.
Yeah, So there is an ideological minority in the Labour Party. There's two of them, in fact.
Yeah.
And combined, they represent about 4.5% of the membership.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I had the pleasure of going on BBC Daily Politics earlier on this afternoon, and I was with one Alison McGovern.
You do get around, don't you, Aaron?
I do. I try my best. Let's go to a bit of footage from that. This is a really important debate, and, I think we both agree. Progress councillors are more than welcome to have 4.5% of the councillor positions in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see that video.
The video's going to come up. We're going to... Aaron, continue to stare into the camera.
All my energy's been used up because...
Yeah. We'll go on to the next bit as it comes up. So, I mean, you would expect this to potentially blow over, but the problem is that this small minority, they're very well connected and they can talk to the Times and they can talk to the Evening Standard. And this story is...
And even the Observer.
And even the Observer. And this story will run
Corbyn
and
must
run
be
and run.
shitting himself.
Yeah. So
the Observer.
There will be an attempt to make it seem as if there is a civil war in the Labour Party, and this will be intended to damage our position in the polls.
Right.
And intended to try and finally bring down the Labour left so that these centrists
falling
can
into
come
the
back.
trap set for you by the Conservatives and tearing each other apart rather than taking it to the Conservatives.
Well, with all due respect, if the trap is winning 3 million extra votes in a general election, if it's being 8 points ahead of the Tories in the polls, then again, I want that trap to get even worse. I mean, if that's what it looks like, I think this one sec. This is about democratic invigoration of the Labour Party, and there is a clear, indisputable correlation between that and improved electoral performance. Just empirically, it's observable. So I would say, actually, this is instrumentally vital to a reinvigorated party membership who now feel agency, who knock on the doors, who work so hard like we saw in the run-up to June 8th. And that has to continue if Labour are to continue making outstanding improvements.
Haven't they?
Look at somebody's whole record, not just on one thing that they might say or whatever. Look at their whole record and judge them by what they do.
All right.
Bring the Labour Party together. Don't rip it apart.
Right. Well, that's the accusation, that you're ripping the Labour Party apart. Roy Hattersley says that Momentum are the greatest crisis for the Labour Party in its history. Is he right? Momentum is taking control of the party at every level, including at council.
I mean, Jeremy Corbyn's won 2 leadership elections, and he won over 50% of the vote both times, with the membership the first time just slightly under. And now what we're seeing is that base of support is now finding democratic reflection within the elected offices of the party. We're now seeing beginning at local level with councillors. There's nothing wrong with that. Liz Kendall, the Progress candidate in 2015, got 4.5% of the vote. I have no problem with Progress having 4.5% of Labour's councillors. The point is that the values and the objectives need to be, of the membership, need to be reflected in our holders of public office.
So you do want candidates that properly reflect Momentum's objectives?
The membership's objectives.
Oh, you were quite nice to her. That. Presumably she agreed to that, right? 4.5% for Progress. They should be happy with that.
It's only fair, isn't it?
It is only fair.
Well, these people aren't that interested in fairness. In fact, looking back at that video, I don't think Alison McGovern's a particularly big fan of me.
Oh.
I'll get over it. Anyway, next.
Yep.
We have got a lot right on Navara media over the years.
As you like to remind us, Aaron.
Yeah, well, we said that there was a secular crisis of capitalism after 2008, that model was broken for good. We've said that there would be an insurgent populist politics of both the radical left and the radical right. That happened. We even had the temerity to say that Jeremy Corbyn wouldn't succumb to a historic defeat in this June's general election. But there is one thing we got wrong. There is one area where we were tragically mistaken.
This isn't like you, Aaron. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Well, what?
It's the Tories.
Oh.
Yeah, it's with the Tories. We always said that these people were only in politics for power, that they didn't believe anything, that there were no ideological red lines. But turns out I was wrong.
Leaving the single market, right? Leaving the customs union.
No, none of that.
Taking back control, Brexit.
No, it's nothing to do with Brexit. That's not the red line, Michael.
Migration.
No, it's not
The
migration.
deficit.
Nope.
Go on, what is it?
It's wanking at work.
Oh.
It's wanking at work. Damien Green, who has a porn addiction, previously, I think, the chief confidant of Theresa May, turns out the person that uses his unique account in Parliament in the House of Commons is watching pornography up to 8 hours a day.
Oh, that is a lot of hours.
He's an older man. I mean, it's almost impressive. It's up to 8 hours a day, several hours a day at least. And that's been in the news for a while. But what we found this week was that his colleague, David Davis, said that he would resign if Green lost his position, which goes to show that the Tories do have some values. You know, they're in politics because these are value-driven politicians, and those values include the right to wank at work.
I mean, respect. I respect someone who stands up for their principles and will resign for something they believe in. I mean, it's quite a high-paid job, and if he'd give that up to support a friend, I mean, that's somewhat respectable. But I mean, doesn't he have quite an important thing to do at the moment? No, he's negotiating Brexit, and after all, he was the person who was one of the strongest supporters of Brexit.
Yeah.
You'd have thought he'd want to see it through.
Well, I mean, you can almost imagine Michel Barnier. You know, he gets the message from his colleague in Brussels or Strasbourg, and they say, Monsieur Barnier, Mr. Davis has resigned. And then Barnier was said, I knew it. The Brits aren't that stupid. They can't deliver on Brexit. They'll at least stay in the single market. The Tory right will not seize the initiative when it comes to Britain leaving the European Union.
He'd maybe hope that they're going to replace him with a Remainer, Nicky Morgan or someone.
They go, no, Monsieur Barnier, it's nothing to do with the EU. He's resigned because his colleague wanks 8 hours a day at work. Can you imagine? Amid the biggest negotiations Britain's been involved in for, well, decades.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the most important jobs in the British government, for decades,
Arguably,
since the Second World War.
Yeah, of any politician, right?
Well, I suppose it's even more principled to give that up over your friend wanking.
Or you could argue that the situation is so desperate that he's looking for any reason to get the fuck out because he doesn't want to be personally tarnished with this car crash government, and he certainly doesn't want to be associated with the hard Brexit, which is only destined to deliver declining living standards for Brits for a long time to come.
It all makes sense now. So Damien Green was basically doing him a favour by watching all that porn.
Yeah, well, actually, we've done a bit of work here. We've done the numbers on Damien Green and how much he's paid per wank. And it works out, I think, I modelled this earlier on because you might not know this.
Give us the numbers, Aaron.
Yeah, I actually did. I did an economics module for my master's degree. I worked this out. 30 weeks a year, 5 days a week.
30 weeks? Is that all they work? 30 weeks a year?
It's like being a school teacher.
Yeah, okay.
240 minutes a day. Let's be kind. Let's say that the 8 hours a day was an outlier. Let's go for 4 hours a day. 240 minutes a day. Let's say it takes him about 30 minutes per orgasm. Okay? You're looking at about 1,200 orgasms a year. Okay, that's just in parliamentary time. Okay, that's not in his own time. Presumably, you know, he has needs 52 weeks, the other 22 weeks of the year. So, he's on £75,000 basic last year on payroll, £75,000 a year. So how much is the great British taxpayer paying Damien Green per wank?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you've done the maths. I wouldn't want to guess.
I've done the numbers. It's £62.50 per wank. It's a good game for some, isn't it? Politics.
Good game. He could probably make it bigger if he put something on. He could put the tissues on expenses.
Well, I'll tell you what, if he's going that furiously, he's probably got to put the lube on it as well. On that note, enough of wanking at work, enough of Tory melts in... Tory melts, there might as well be. Labour melts in a Labour meltdown. We're going to go to a quick break. After that, we'll be talking about Dylan Jones and his pathological lying. Be right back.
That's right, this Friday, December the 8th, is it? We've got
This
our
Friday.
Navara Christmas party.
This Friday.
We'd love to see you all there. There'll be DJs, there'll be music.
Good DJs,
Might be
actually.
a Christmas tree, I'm not sure.
And also, you know, I want to say this. It's been an amazing year for the left. 12 months ago, we didn't have this studio. We didn't have half this kit. And the left is much stronger now than I thought we ever thought possible a year ago. And that doesn't just apply to electoralism. You know, everyday conversations, the sense of general political possibilities far broader than we thought. 12 months ago was, you know, the aftermath of the Trump win. That's all changed. So there are some tickets left. The party's this Friday. Go to our Facebook page. What's the link again? I think it's buy ticket. Oh, God.
Event note or something.
We'll check the comments below. We'll put a link for the tickets. Join us, because it's been a momentous year and we really should enjoy it together. I might even buy you a half.
Everyone.
That's why I said a half.
Okay.
So, anyway.
Next story.
Dylan Jones. I like the hat, by the way.
Reality, Dylan Jones.
Speaking of style,
It's
gurus.
festive, isn't it?
Speaking of style, gurus.
In our colour scheme.
Yeah, it's kind of anarcho Christmas.
Oh, it's a bit like how, did you see how Donald Trump's White House was decorated for Christmas?
Oh, yes.
Anyway, we didn't prepare this, so the image won't come up. So let's go to
anarcho Christmas. You steal the kids' presents and then no, you dumpster dive your Christmas presents. Anyway, Dylan Jones. Last week, Jeremy Corbyn was revealed to be this month's GQ cover star.
Looking fly, I might say.
Wow, he looks swish, huh? People are saying he's been touched up, but of course they're all touched up, and he still looks great
I mean, I want Navara to get one of those, an airbrush, live airbrush.
in real time.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be fantastic.
It's possible.
Yeah, and you know, GQ basically, its editorial team is almost like the embryo of a neo-fascist organisation. These people have terrible politics, right? But I thought there can be no downside here. Millions of people be watching, passing past rather, this cover in petrol stations and supermarkets, you name it. And they'll just glance across and they'll think, wow, he looks really prime ministerial. And it's those everyday unconscious moments, which actually tend to be really important in terms of collective political psychology.
And it's a turnaround, right? Because it's to make him look like actively a statesman.
Yeah.
So before he's put on his suit and tie and done up his...
Yeah. So I thought there was no downside here, at least I didn't, until Dylan Jones decided to publicly par working with Jeremy Corbyn on the BBC Today programme just 24 hours after that image went out on social media. Let's have a look.
The actual shoot itself was quite torturous. It was as difficult as actually shooting any Hollywood celebrity, actually.
Really? In what respect?
Because, I mean, we've shot many politicians for our cover. We were the first magazine to have David Cameron on the cover. We've shot Boris twice. Earlier in the year, we did Sadiq Khan with some great success. But never have we encountered such a sort of ring of... he's got, obviously, Seamus Mill and his sort of crew
Key advisor,
are great, very very particular gatekeepers.
But what was it they were demanding and that was difficult?
They didn't really seem to understand the process at all. Didn't understand that, A, that he would have to be photographed in the first place, B, that he would need to be presentable, or that he couldn't just turn up in his anorak. But the whole process was fascinating. When he actually turned up for the shoot, it was almost like he was being pushed around like a grandpa for the family Christmas photographs. He wasn't particularly aware of what was going on. The actual shoot itself was quite torturous. It was as difficult as actually shooting.
I mean, that does seem quite damning, right? I mean, they didn't know he needed to have a photograph. They didn't know he had to be wearing nice clothes. And I mean, presumably he's a reputable guy. He's the editor of GQ, and that was the BBC's Today programme.
Well, you know what's pretty outrageous, actually, is that Dylan Jones wasn't even there.
He wasn't even in the room.
Dylan Jones was not present at neither the interview nor the photo shoot. There should be a HuffPo headline coming up in a second. I was told that on very good authority, and then later he publicly admitted to as much. So he wasn't even there. Initially, I thought this is kind of like a guerrilla marketing thing, you know. Let's make the magazine as big as possible. I'll lie through my teeth. But I don't think it was. I just think that, you know, Dylan Jones is a Tory, so he doesn't want Jeremy Corbyn looking the business on the front cover of his own magazine.
How do you know he's a Tory?
Well, in 2008, he literally wrote an article saying that he was a Tory.
Okay.
And then after that, he wrote a book with David Cameron about David Cameron.
Well, fair play. It's quite prestigious you get asked to... If I got asked to write a book about the leader of a political party or the Prime Minister, I'd probably do it.
Yeah,
I mean, if you get asked to do it...
Yeah, but he paid him £20,000 to do it.
David Cameron paid him £20,000 to do it?
No. He paid David Cameron £20,000 to write a book about David Cameron.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, right? And when I say that Dylan Jones has political views which are effectively worthless, they are worth next to nothing, I literally mean it. You can now buy that book on Amazon for 1 penny. A single penny. He paid David Cameron £20,000 to write that book. You can now buy it for 1 penny. So don't listen to Dylan Jones when it comes to politics. And that pathological brand of liar who privileges appearances and style and PR above actual, values and a political project, is dead. He's the kind of media analogue to Cameron. Cameron is no longer in politics because he was completely found out. And actually, I think Dylan Jones is a bit of a bird of a feather, shall we say?
It doesn't actually go down that well when he says we did Sadiq Khan. It went very well.
I
Not surprised.
I looked for that article online, the Sadiq Khan. I looked for the front cover. I couldn't find it.
Oh, it just doesn't exist.
Look. There's 2 things in this country nobody reads: The Observer and GQ. Right. Anyway, we'll be back next week, I think. Right.
Yeah, it was a quick one today.
It was nice and quick.
It was a bit of a Hall of Fame of melts of the week, I think, really. But I mean, we'll see what happens in the next week. Maybe some heroes will shine through.
I hope so. As we've already mentioned, our Christmas party is this Friday. There is a link to buying tickets. It's at Total Refreshment Centre up in, I believe, in North London.
It's in Hackney, yeah.
Are you sure it's not in Tottenham?
It's in Hackney or Tottenham. It's in North London.
It's in North London. So if you want to come along, check that out. The tickets are there. Otherwise, we'll see you next Monday. Navara FM, as ever, broadcast this Friday on Resonance 104.4 FM. I guess that's that. And by the way, you can still buy Navara merch for your Christmas presents.
It wouldn't be Christmas without Christmas presents.
But you haven't got long. Go to shop.navaramedia.com.